In Chapter B, we open on an injured Guts being chased through a forest by malevolent spirits, and he looks to be in jeopardy. Before we can see what happens, we join Puck, who apparently hitched a ride with a bird. Puck is looking for Guts, but when it seems like he won't find him, Puck brushes this off by saying that maybe wolves ate Guts. And just when he's resigned to ending his search, he falls off the tree he's perched on and lands right next to Guts. And man, is Puck excited to see him. Though, obviously Guts doesn't feel the same way. Puck pesters Guts with questions as per the norm. Then Guts grabs Puck by his wings and asks him what he's doing here. To which Puck responds, "The name's Puck, try not to forget it." Guts just gives Puck an indignant stare until he receives an actual explanation. Puck just says that all this monster stuff is interesting. Guts tries to cut through what he perceives as bullshit and asks if it's about his elven sense of duty. But Puck genuinely wants to hang around because he thinks he'll see all sorts of neat things. Guts responds negatively to this, throwing Puck into a puddle of water. This makes Puck angry and he yells at Guts, asking why he did that. Guts says he's not looking to keep any pets, that he doesn't like elves and doesn't like Puck in particular. Puck asks why, and Guts tells Puck it's because he's weak. It makes him want to crush him. Puck yells at him as he walks away, calling him a bastard, which at this point is pretty warranted, especially since Guts smiles as he walks away. As Guts is walking, it starts to rain, and a friendly passerby offers to give him a ride because of how heavy the rain is. But Guts tries to shoo off the man who turns out to be a priest. Guts warns him, saying he's being pursued by a legion of evil spirits, but the priest doesn't seem to believe him, laughing it off and reassuring Guts, saying that he has God on his side and a lucky spirit, which turns out to be Puck. Go figure. The priest further pushes Guts to get in his wagon, and finally Guts agrees to this, justifying to himself that he wouldn't care if anything happened to this man and his daughter, despite the fact that he earlier tried to warn them of his affliction. A little while down the road, we cut to the inside of the wagon with Guts and Puck. Guts is just staring at Puck, and Puck quickly takes offense to this, stating that he was in the wagon first, so Guts has no right to complain. In retaliation, Guts throws the towel that he was drying himself off with onto Puck. Then the daughter of the priest comes into the back of the wagon to give Guts wine so he can warm up. Puck gets really excited and asks for some, so Guts drops the whole flask onto him. The priest's daughter gets inquisitive and asks Guts where he got his wounds. Guts tells her the truth, that he got them from the spirits chasing him, but she says that can't be true. And the priest playfully tells Guts not to frighten his daughter too much. Then the priest asks if the slab of metal Guts has is a sword, to which the actual answer is obviously yes, but Guts tells the priest that he uses it for his cooking. The priest asks Guts if he's a mercenary, and Guts says something like that. The priest goes on to explain that he doesn't have much respect for that profession. Guts responds by saying that's why he doesn't like priests. The priest then tells a story about his nephew becoming a mercenary and dying because of it, and he laments over the life that his nephew could have had. Guts argues that since he died doing what he wanted, he must have been happy, and makes it clear that of course, once you die, nothing comes after that. Guts announces that he's going to sleep, and the priest's daughter quickly provides him with a blanket. She tries to justify it with disingenuous reasoning, saying that he could catch a cold. Listen, I've been trying to stay on topic as much as possible, but I've got to mention it since it's so blatantly obvious at this point. The priest's daughter is stuttering and blushing like a schoolgirl, which is appropriate because she's probably like 14, but the point is that she's got the hots for a main man Guts. I may be addressing this again, since it happens more often than you'd expect. It may not be obvious now, but as Miura improves as an artist... Oh shit, I never introduced Miura. Kentaro Miura is the writer and artist of Berserk. He's awesome. The more you know. Alright, it may not be obvious now, but as Miura improves as an artist, it'll become clear that Guts is supposed to be a handsome young man, and that will draw women to him. And I'm not just taking this aside to be like, yo, Guts is the coolest and biggest dick G ever. This is something that will prove to be relevant, and perhaps even important depending on how you look at it, as the story proceeds. Now, we'll return to said story. Guts simply accepts the gesture and tries to go to sleep, which pleases the priest's daughter. As Guts is falling asleep, we see something drop from the roof of the wagon, which seems to just be a raindrop at first, but then appears to be some creature with a singular eye. We then transition to the dream that Guts is having, where he is wandering through a world with two massive walls and an eyeball in the sky. When his exhaustion sets in, he takes notice of his surroundings, and subsequently that his brand is bleeding. We hear a disembodied voice telling Guts that he can't run from them. Guts then steps on a spike and sees something in the water, which makes him try even harder to get the spike out of his foot. It turns out to be the same small demon that we saw in Chapter A. All of a sudden, Guts' metal arm disappears, and we hear the disembodied voice yet again, and the small demon appears much larger. Guts screams and is jarred from his dream. He stabs a small demon that was trying to attack him in his sleep. He throws it onto a barrel next to Puck, and Puck flips his shit, drawing the attention of the priest and waking up his daughter. Then they notice the small demon, and they flip their shit and ask what it is. Guts tells them it's an incubus, an evil spirit that gives people nightmares to feed off their fear, and internally curses the demons for not even letting him sleep. The priest is still finding it hard to believe that Guts' talk about demons was true. Guts points out the hypocrisy in his believing in God, but not in evil spirits. Puck asks why it came after Guts, and Guts tells him that it's because of the brand, and then the brand begins to bleed, signaling the arrival of demons. Guts steps outside of the wagon to confront the threat. Guts explains the means through which incubi are created, and he concludes that there must be corpses of bandits nearby who died violently, corpses that the demons will possess to attack them with. Then the horses start to act up and draw the attention of our crew. The priest's daughter jumps out of the carriage to calm the horses, and Guts admonishes her for it, and then she gets impaled to everyone's surprise. But it may just be worth it, because we get a big shot of some motherfucking skeleton warriors! Skeleton warriors! But for real, it's pretty sad that she got murked so hard. The skeleton warriors scare the priest and Puck, and Guts says this must be some old battlefield. Then he looks over at the priest's daughter who's bleeding out with a worried look.
The skeleton warriors
attack Guts, and he retaliates with his throwing knives. Puck tells Guts that they need to retreat, but Guts refuses, saying that if Puck wants to leave, he should do it himself. Puck responds by saying that Guts will be killed, but Guts with a smirk on his face states that it comes with the territory. Guts starts tearing clean through the During this onslaught, Puck retreats back into the wagon, and sees that something has happened to the priest. It causes Puck to yell for Guts, and he responds indignantly, but he looks back anyway and sees what occurred in the wagon behind him. It was indeed worth his attention, as we see the priest's daughter holding his head with a bloody sword in hand. Guts' face has shock written all over it, and the priest's daughter makes her way toward Guts with the sword still in her hand. During their standoff, Guts remembers how she was just moments earlier, and it seems to pain him. Puck tries to warn Guts, but Guts realizes too late that the priest's daughter had walked toward him and stabbed him with her sword. Again, this shocks Guts and worries Puck. The very next panel has the torso of the priest's daughter flying across the battlefield. This riles up the skeleton warriors, and one tries to kill Guts in a moment of vulnerability. After he takes care of it, the weight of Guts' actions catch up with him, and he throws up in his hand. This creates another moment of vulnerability, and yet again a takes advantage of this. Then the start to swarm him and almost kill him. But Guts transitions from shock and disgust at what he did to anger at what the did to the priest's daughter. This sends him on a rampage, and we immediately cut to morning, with Puck leaning against a tree crying, and Guts leaning against his sword panting heavily. As the spirits of the float into the sky, Puck states that it's all over. Both him and Guts look over at the priest's daughter in rage and sadness respectively. Puck, being considerate, tells Guts that it wasn't his fault, and Guts bursts into laughter, telling Puck he's right. Like he said, anyone who gets killed because they got caught up in someone else's fight is a small fry. If they can't live their life freely, they're better off dead. They couldn't protect themselves from a walking disaster like Guts. Then Guts says perhaps the most inhuman line he has ever spoken. If you're always worried about crushing the ants beneath you, you won't be able to walk. Once again, I want to take an aside to address this. This line is something that brings to light just how much closer to the apostles and demons he's hunting Guts is becoming, even if he doesn't really mean what he's saying. There's always been the philosophy, to destroy a monster, you must become one yourself. And in relation to Guts' character at this point, it may be true. Or maybe he himself subscribes to that philosophy. But most likely this is an attempt to not care about the loss that surrounds him, for the sole purpose of keeping himself fully functional. He may even be saying what he is to convince himself of it rather than Puck. I figure the bottom line is that this is how he copes with the loss he deals with, or the destruction he causes to others. It's also why he distances himself from others, so he doesn't have to deal with any more loss or cause any more destruction. It's a sad way to live life, but it's also the way that he's been burdened with, and the way he figures is best. Not for him necessarily, but most definitely for others. Guts is indeed much more considerate than he seems, and than he portrays himself to be. After Guts' diatribe about the people who helped him, Puck hears sounds that are out of the ordinary, and asks what they are. They then hear multiple threatening statements made by many unseen speakers directed toward Guts, as well as their maniacal laughter. They taunt Guts, saying that the brand will continue to draw them to him. As long as he has it, he belongs to them in his entirety. This gets to Guts, as he yells at them to shut up and fires his arm cannon into the air. Guts walks away from the scene, painting a stoic visage, as Puck shows his worry about him. After all, he just witnessed the entire precursor to the scene laid before him. And the present scene actually causes Puck to realize that this is what Guts' life is like nearly every day. And I believe that Puck gains some sympathy, and perhaps even some pity for Guts because of what he has to go through. This apparently gives Puck the resolve to follow Guts and help him throughout his journey. And it's good that he did, because Guts will desperately need all the help he can get, both in the near future and onward. The Brand End.